Looking at the summary of the data is really important, and it allows us as teachers to understand what worked and what didn't. Now, I can see that after the mini lessons each week, the students went on to the technology-based solution and then they practiced with that sound and they practiced putting that sound into the word. Now, the first week, there was some kids that were having a little bit more trouble understanding the sounds and understanding how to put them in. But after practicing and practicing, by week 4, the students were a lot more efficient and able to sound out the words when they didn't understand what they were. So when you look at the week 1 letter sounds, these are the sounds that they practiced on the technology-based solution and identified it either correctly or incorrectly, and that is the percentage that they got. There are a few students that had a little bit more trouble with the sounding out of letters and words because, for example, this student right here is a level 1 ESOL student, so it made it a little bit more difficult for that child to be able to sound out letters in words when that child was still learning what words meant in the English vocabulary. And then there are a few kids that needed certain sounds that were retaught, and what we did is we practiced that sound again and modeled it a little bit more for them to help them build off of that sound. Now, the sounds kind of intertwine into each other through this technology-based solution, Read with Phonics. It allows the students to practice sounds that they've already learned and then put them into new words with new sounds that they learn. As you can see, most of the students did pretty well, and they really started to get a really good hang of how to sound out the words. During week 2, there were some words that definitely were tricking a lot of students. For instance, we found that a lot of students had trouble with the R sound, and a few students had trouble with that CK sound. And what we found, and I helped my other teachers kind of do different lessons on these sounds so that the students were able to pick up them a little bit better. We noticed that they really did have fun with the Read with Phonics technology-based solution, and they definitely were showing improvement in sounding out their letters in their words correctly. So a lot of them had a lot. So during week 2, there was a lot less reteaching, except there were students that had issues with the sound CK and the sound R. We found that these were the trickiest sounds that the students were having trouble with. To help these students, we retaught these sounds and used different word games in order to provide that support that they needed. As you can see, still my level ESOL 1 student was still having trouble with it, but he still was able to partially sound out words and place them in somewhat of the right order. During week 3, there was way less reteaching. Most students were getting 90s and 100%, and they were able to use the technology-based solution of Read with Phonics to sound out the word with the letters that were in it. As you can see, most of the students improved a lot. 90s, some 80%, but really really most in the 90s or the hundreds. Not much reteaching. The biggest thing we found was that the students were able to take activities that we were doing with the teacher, the mini lessons, and that guided practice time before they went to the technology-based solution, they were able to really take apart the word and sound it out. And they broke it apart so that the sound of each letter was heard. At the end of week 3, we had them do an unscramble. So it was a picture of a different item, and then the 3 letters were scrambled there. The students had to say what the picture was, and then they had to sound out the word. Most of them did really, really well. There are a few of them that didn't quite understand the directions. For instance, this little girl. This little girl literally, she said the sounds correctly, but instead of copying it down, she literally looked back at the side where the word was scrambled and copied the scrambled word. So for her, the redirection of we're not copying the word down, we're copying the sounds we hear. That took a little bit more understanding for her, and on the second one, she did a lot better. So during week 4, the final week of the technology-based solution and all the mini lessons that were being taught by the teachers and myself, I found that, again, there wasn't really many reteaches, and the students did a lot better on the second unscramble the words. So again, this was where it had the picture and it had the words scrambled, so they had to say the word and then sound out the word correctly. They did a lot better. And my little girl who had trouble the first time went up on the second one. For her, she sounded out the words correctly, but then she was still stuck in putting what she saw, the scrambled word, back into the 3 box for the word. So her mind was stuck on, I see it as a scrambled word, I must write it as a scrambled word, rather than sitting there and taking the sounds that she's saying and placing them into the correct boxes. So I was listening to her and she was sounding out the word correctly. So like if she heard bat, she'd say bat. And then she wouldn't write bat because that's not what the scrambled word was. She would write what the scrambled word was, and it was TBA. So she sounded it out. She said the word and then again sounded it out and then just didn't write it always correctly. So that's something that I noticed, and I am going to keep working with her on the sounds, even though the technology-based solution is finished. So overall, this technology-based solution shows that based on the data that was collected, that students were able to really sound out the letters in words when they were practicing it on the technology-based solution of Read with Phonics. I found that really the students enjoyed this game. They were so excited to play it, and that's something that they really wanted to do every day. They're like, are we going to get to play our game today? And I'm like, oh yeah, of course you are, no worries. So I knew that they really enjoyed it, and the games were fun. There were little mini games and mini lessons of hearing the sound first and then kind of seeing how the sound fits in the word. And then the students had a chance to sit there and play a game where they got points and rewards on the screen for sounding out the word correctly. So this data clearly shows that it was something that was helpful to the students and it provided them a way to practice letter sounds in a way that they haven't been able to do before.